You've been speaking with Chairman Kevin Brady yesterday. You're speaking to him today. What are the options on the table?
Well, I've been working on this issue for over a year and a half, and being from a high-tax state, I can assure you the chairman as well as the speaker understand our concern, and I think there's a compromise position here that's going to address taking care of 99% of the people, for example, in the district we represent, and come to a compromise that allows us to advance the goal of tax reform and fixing this for the American people.
All right, let's talk a little bit about that compromise. I've got a chart here on the Bloomberg, a map of the U.S., hashtag BTV6591, showing the country by congressional district, highlighting those districts that have above median state and local tax deductions. And knowing Ithaca, knowing your district as I do, I think the 23rd there is marked in red. How big an issue is this, and what kind of compromise are you looking at for folks in the 23rd district?
Well, obviously, this does impact people's bottom line when it comes to the tax liability in districts like ours. So when you look at our median income of about $40,000, average income about $30,000, we want to make sure that when we do a solution like on a credit, move it from a deduction to a credit where you get dollar-for-dollar reduction in your tax liability for families making $150,000, maybe even up to $400,000. These are the ranges of income that we're talking about. That goes a long way to alleviate this issue when it comes to people who are making these payments and filling out their tax returns.
Will you vote for the budget regardless of the deductions, or do you need more clarity here?
No, I'm very confident we can move forward with the budget because the budget's the tool to get us to tax reform, and so it is not where the final decision is going to be made. So I'm supportive of the budget. I understand folks maybe are trying to use the budget in order to leverage a position on this issue, but from my perspective, a compromise is coming. A compromise to me where 99% of the American people are taken care of, or in districts such as mine, that is something I can live with. I'm a Ronald Reagan guy. 80% of the loaf is a victory. It's not a defeat. And I'm willing to have that conversation because the overall goal of tax reform that's going to give people more money in their paychecks. It's going to allow them to grow and have a booming economy. To me, that to me is well part of this, having this compromise position and discussing and being part of it.
I spoke with your House Ways and Means Committee colleague Diane Black yesterday, Congresswoman Diane Black, of course, of the House Budget Committee as well, and she talked about how a lot of these dials are still being moved when it comes to the 401k part of the tax code, for instance, or the state and local tax deduction. Is it your sense that you have autonomy to do that? You on the committee, you're able to do that. How worried are you about, I won't call it overreach, but the reach from the executive branch over to the legislative branch in the form of a tweet, in the form of a statement to say something's off the table?
Well, no, I will tell you, I mean, we had a meeting today with Gary Cohn, about 20 of us as problem solvers members, Republican and Democratic members getting together, having a conversation with the White House. We're working hand in hand to try to come up with a solution that works because we're about getting to yes. We're about representing people and getting a solution in place for the people back home. And that's the conversation going on. I'm not so concerned about that. Obviously, they have to be part of this process because the president's got to sign it into law. But I'm not overly concerned about that. That's the process of getting this right.
If the SALT deductions are repealed or even capped, what sort of credit are you looking into for the middle class? What form would that take?
Yeah, what you'd be looking at, even for the people that are just taking the standard deduction, for example, they would have access to a credit. That's why the credit idea to me is something I've been trying to push if we're going to have a compromise here, because that means a dollar-for-dollar reduction in their tax bill at the end of the day to the federal government, that everyone in those income brackets, maybe $200,000, $300,000 and below, somewhere in there, I mean, we've even had discussions up to potentially $400,000 of income. That's a lot of people that will get a tax reduction in their tax bill to the federal government by having the credit accessible to them, regardless if they itemize their deduction or take the standard deduction. I'll tell you, a lot of people back home, they're like, you give us a break like that, that's their money, and they'll use their money to grow this economy.